when a potential buyer threatens to bulldoze Molly's reach, Nick and the gang swing into action to save their favorite restaurant, while Relic plays both sides. Battle of the Network shows. Join Rick Brooks and Mike Kogel as they explore the TV of the 70s and 80s through hand-picked episodes of their favorite and not-so-favorite series.
Welcome to another Battle of the Network shows, our third and final international episode.
At least for now.
At least for now.
Yes, we may return to the international waters at some point.
Correct. I'm Mike.
And I'm Rick. Hello, everyone.
And today we're going to the Great North War. The Great North, whatever you call it. Canada.
Yes, there you
go. The Great White North. That's what I was looking for.
Okay, yeah.
Canada. Partly because one of our listeners, our loyal listeners, is Canadian. And we had asked him when he joined our Facebook group to recommend some Canadian TV that we might want to talk about. And so we thought we'd give it a shot.
I don't know if he actually recommended this show, did he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if it was a recommendation. It was
more of a mention.
A Canadian show.
Yes.
Yeah. Steve Cloutier, a.k.a. Doc Pinko, should mention he's on a podcast for Illuminati Social Club that is going through all of In Search Of. So if you liked our In Search Of episode, you should definitely go check that out.
Yeah, we can highly recommend that. They do a great job talking about the show and have fun with it, and it's great stuff.
And, we like Canada, I think. We're good with Canada.
Oh, yeah. Hey, yeah. Who's not good with Canada?
Right. I gotta say, we Americans, we have some stereotypes about Canada.
We do.
I don't know if they're true or not, that everyone's polite.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure they're rude people. That it's a little more laid back.
Right.
They're a bunch of freeloaders. No.
What?
They all, drink beer and eat maple syrup. And
yeah. Play hockey.
Yeah.
Play hockey, talk about hockey, or watch hockey.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know a lot about Canada growing up. I knew about it sort of indirectly through other things.
Mm.
For example, the fact that comic books would have that Canadian price on them.
Yes. Sometimes.
The fact that the Topps baseball cards would be distributed as O-Pee-Chee in Canada. Mm. So you'd have these Canadian versions of sometimes the same cards, and they'd be sort of another thing to collect.
Oh, I never saw those.
Yeah, so that'd be kind of a little, again, ooh, Canada, it's sort of like a different country, but it's right, above us, and they've got all these little ways in which you sort of see reminders of them.
Yeah.
But the one thing I did not get a lot of, and I guess I could mention Alpha Flight.
Yes, that's how mostly I know about Canada.
Yeah. To me, sports like Toronto Blue Jays, the Montreal Expos, and seeing the Canadian Football League on ESPN, back when ESPN would show things like the Canadian Football League more often. But as far as Canadian culture and Canadian television, I really didn't have any exposure to that I can remember. Except maybe the one show that I would be SCTV if you want to talk about that, And
yeah, that's a huge.
Yeah, I would know Canadians coming down to the United States and doing TV and SCTV, but other than that, I didn't know anything about Canadian television.
And later, Kids in the Hall.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I knew anything about Canadian television. Alpha Flight, again, the Canadian Marvel superhero team. When are they getting their movie?
Yeah, good question.
They don't care about Canada?
I don't want to start that rumor, but
no,
it's worth considering.
Not a big enough market?
Yeah, I don't know.
Geographically, it's very big, but of course, much smaller population. And we our family took a trip to Canada. And this will always be a mystery, but no one in our family spoke French, and so we went to Quebec and Montreal.
Of course, nice.
Yeah, and Quebec, they don't really, there's a lot less English there than Quebec City. Mm-hmm. That was where we spent most of the time. Then we spent half a day and overnight in Montreal.
Wow.
So, it was interesting.
Yeah, and hockey was the one major sport I didn't care anything about as a kid.
Yeah.
So really, I didn't get much exposure to Canada through that either. So, and I was never in Canada, but so you've definitely got more direct experience. Did you watch any television when you were up in Canada?
I remember something being on in Montreal, but I think it was it might have been American. I don't even know if it was a CBC or it was a CBS affiliate from America.
Well, I still don't know a lot about Canadian television, so I'm going to speculate about it and say something that of course, that I don't know is true or not. But my impression is that Canadian broadcasting isn't quite. I don't think it was quite the big entity that like the British Broadcasting Corporate Company was.
Yeah,
the BBC was. So I don't know. You don't hear a lot of, especially when we were growing up, we had like BBC shows playing on PBS stations all the time and stuff.
Right.
But you didn't see a lot of like these Canadian, and I don't think they were producing as much raw material as the BBC was.
Yeah, I believe they do have like a certain amount, at least on the CBC, has to be produced in country.
Yeah,
and then the rest comes from the U.S. Now, of course, a lot of nowadays, and for 20 plus years at least, probably 30 years, a lot of American TV is made in Canada.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. Yeah.
And films, the films don't seem as many now.
Yeah.
But Vancouver and places like that are hotbeds for.
And we have seen, like in more recent years, like a lot of Canadian shows making their way, partly because of the insatiable need for content on all this plethora of channels. But you'll see like somebody like Ion will pick up like these Canadian dramas or like that Da Vinci's Inquest.
Yes.
Was a big show that was syndicated down here and showed up on different stations. So it seems like it's much more common now for Canadian content to come down here. But growing up, I can't remember anything except with the one exception. I do remember Disney Channel, I think, showed some more children's family programming like a Danger Bay and maybe a couple of other productions I think would make their way onto Disney Channel, like the early premium Disney Channel.
Like back then, was it PBS that originally showed the Degrassi stuff?
I don't know.
Somebody here did.
Nickelodeon, was it Nickelodeon or was that
like later? They did, like Noggin or some.
Right, but there was somebody before that maybe. Yeah, maybe it was PBS. Yeah. Okay, Degrassi, which I think
it's like a generational.
Yeah, Degrassi became like the longest running Canadian drama series, I believe.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming it still is, but it beat out the show that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. Are there any other recent Canadian shows that have come to America that you want to mention?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Anything in particular?
No, not me. I've heard that there's like a sitcom that people like, but
Oh,
I don't want to.
It's actually it's there's some similarities. Maybe we could get to that.
Okay.
Well, there's a show called Corner Gas.
Yeah.
Which is it's in rural Canada, featuring inhabitants of a small town, quirky characters, sometimes dry humor, and often to me like playing off on a lot of tropes that you see in other sitcoms and everything like that. A more modern show, highly recommended. Everybody should watch it, really. I can't understand why you would not watch it, especially if you had people telling you should watch it, recommending it. But the funny thing is, I thought you were actually leading towards me promoting Private Eyes with Jason Priestley, which I still do want to watch that show at some point.
I do too. I do have recordings of it on my DVR, but I don't know. I know I have my DVR deactivated, so I'm not sure I can even watch the stuff that's recorded.
Well, that should show up on one of these places someday. It's going to show up streaming, I know.
It should, yeah. Come on, Priestley.
Yeah.
You got some pull.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
Yes, one of Canada's best imports is Jason Priestley.
Yes.
There's Michael J. Fox and half of Saturday Night Live / SCTV.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, half a comedy.
Yeah.
4/5 of the band.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, if you're a Neil Young fan, Neil Young.
And even if you hate him, he's still from Canada.
Stephen Still is also from Canada.
Okay.
Rush.
No, there you go.
Molson beer.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's at least second in best beer, of course.
Of course, yes. Maybe there's some Canadian TV show podcast that has been analyzing Molson commercials. But as far as like growing up and our era and watching Canadian TV, no, I didn't have much exposure to it at all.
No. Apparently this show was on PBS stations. I don't know where.
Yeah, I don't remember it being on at all.
Maybe just tangential to Canada. So, and people who grew up like near the Canadian border probably did pick up the CBC.
Yeah,
because we know America. I mean, you hear about Canadians getting a lot of American TV over the border.
Yeah, there's definitely some border towns that could do. And I do remember being aware of that and being sort of interested in that and fascinated by it, but I don't remember ever experiencing it or anything.
Yeah.
And we got like a big satellite dish, kind of like in the late 80s, I guess. And I don't remember really seeking out or seeing a lot of like CBC stuff or maybe other Canadian channels. Although I imagine they might have been free to pick up, like on the old school big dishes. I think you would be able to get them, but I don't remember there being a lot of or easy to find or anything. So
one more Canadian thing: Canadian bacon.
Canadian bacon, classic movie. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes. Yeah, no, I never saw it.
No, I didn't either.
But I'll tell you what I did see.
Yeah.
I saw multiple episodes of the show we're going to cover today.
I did too. So that show is called The Beachcombers, and it aired from 1972?
Correct.
To 1990?
Correct.
300-something episodes?
Yes, 19 seasons and 387 episodes officially. Man. Staggering. And they had a revival of it later in a couple of movies, apparently. And But, wow. That's amazing.
It is. And Amazon Prime has one season.
Yeah, that's equally amazing for different reasons.
A random season from 1985.
Yeah. So, kind of late in the show's run, actually.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's there, and I think a lot of the episode dates are wrong, and I think they're out of order. I don't know, maybe it's a production. But they're there, so if you want to see some of the episodes we watched, and I checked on our usual online video watching sources, streaming sources, and I don't know if you checked, there's not a whole lot of other Beachcombers episodes. Okay. It seems like a lot of the ones people post are from this era, or this year even. I did watch one from like 1975 just to kind of get a feel for what it was like.
Yeah.
And
was it pretty much exactly the same?
It was pretty much exactly the same. People had more hair.
Yeah.
Looked a little younger, but it was pretty much exactly the same.
Okay.
So I imagine this is fairly representative, apart from a few major characters not being here.
Yeah.
That were there earlier. Right. But yeah, I think this is pretty. It's not like we picked something like in the notorious, terrible last season of Beachcombers.
So the general setup, it's set in a town called Gibsons in British Columbia, which I guess is a real town, and filmed there, mostly there. And there's a guy named Nick, and he's a Greek immigrant. He and a First Nations member named Jesse have a salvage company, and they go. I think mostly what I read, they like get logs that fall off, that get out of the stream of the logging stream or fall off, and pick them up and return them to the logging companies
for like they get
a fee,
cents on the dollar for that or whatever.
Yeah. So it's this little town, and then there's their friends and their family, and there's a diner called Molly's Reach, which is important in the episode we're going to talk about. And there's a bank where Jesse's wife works, and there's a constable whose name is John Constable. So Constable John Constable, and everyone's very friendly, and they're it's a nice community. And then there's this ne'er-do-well. Well, not a ne'er-do-well. A little bit of a trickster, I guess.
Yeah, maybe. Definitely a little bit more than a scamp, I would say.
Yes.
Like a little bit more negative than a scamp, but...
He's a schemer.
Yeah, there you go.
This guy, Relic.
Yeah.
He's their competition. And, they still talk to him and everything, but he's always up to something.
Yeah. Yes.
And that seems the gist of it. And from what I can tell from watching a few episodes and reading descriptions, is that most of the conflict either comes from Relic or a guest star or just some like external forces like the bank or nature.
Yeah. And it's described as a comedy drama.
Yeah.
The episodes I've seen are a lot more comic than drama.
I would say so, yeah.
I think maybe earlier in the show, they maybe leaned on some of the more dramatic. And one thing, and maybe we'll get into this, but the portrayal of indigenous peoples on the show was considered kind of groundbreaking at the time.
Yeah.
And there wasn't a lot of that even on Canadian television, or just indigenous people playing indigenous people without there being a gimmick to it, just happening to be that way. And from what I understand, earlier episodes they focused actually on issues affecting indigenous people and kind of explored those. From what we watched in kind of this season, it's hard to imagine this kind of show doing that, but apparently it did do it earlier, and that kind of gained it some positive buzz for doing that. That was part of it. Is considered part of its legacy, I think.
Right.
But we didn't really see a trace of that. It's not even really a thing on the ones that I watched.
No, I don't think it came up at all.
Yeah.
And I think I saw references to being an adventure show and like an environmental show. I could see the environmental part a little bit, and maybe the adventure stuff happens.
Well,
again, it's what we saw, so we don't know.
Yeah, I think it syndicated well around the world, partly because I think maybe they thought because it was kind of like a travelogue kind of, they could sell it as like, oh, you look at this beautiful scenery and everything. But yeah, the adventure element seems a little... Although, did you see, they apparently, like in the last season or two, and And I kind of made a joke about the notorious final season, but they changed the show to just Beachcombers from The Beachcombers, or the other way around. No, I think it was The Beachcombers, but they changed it to Beachcombers. And if you look at it, did you see this? They have you can see an intro from like the last season, or like 1989 or something, and it looks like Baywatch or something like that. Not with people running around in red swimsuits, but like the font is different and the music's different, and it emphasizes like them driving around, and it looks like a totally different show. I mean, there's a few elements where like instead of like constable like tripping or something like that, they show constable doing kind of like shaking his head like, "Oh, you guys," kind of look, but it looks like they're building it into like an action show or whatever. So that totally looks like they're okay. We're going to force it into an adventure show, but what we saw, no, it looks like more of like a quaint. And I think one of the episodes I saw had a quote unquote boat race, but it was kind of a mild boat race.
Right.
It wasn't like a high speed action thing. It wasn't like Riptide or something.
One had an explosion.
True.
Yeah.
I saw that.
But I would like that. My hope is like those later episodes like had those crazy credits and then were exactly the same. Like that would be the most like unintentional parody of that kind of show. Like, oh, it's gonna be. Yeah, it's just kind of nice.
Yeah. We're gonna revamp the show, and then they just change the opening sequence. That would be great.
13-year-olds. Yes, beach.
Yeah.
It's just old people.
I did watch a clip from the maybe what was the final season or whatever, and it's two people in a hospital, and they were two characters that I didn't know anything about, like hadn't seen them before, and then they just end, and it's like what. I don't know. It seemed like they did try to do some kind of makeover, and I guess it didn't take. Beachcombers was like, in kind of getting back to the nature of the show, it was like a Sunday night staple. It was on like I think 7 or 7:30 on in Canada.
Yeah.
For most of its run apparently. So it was definitely put in that family hour and was considered family entertainment or striving to be family entertainment.
Yeah. Despite the general lack of kids.
True.
I approve.
Yeah. Like in the beginning of the show was centered around like Molly and her grandkids. So they did have the two kids. In the episode I saw, they show them like they're much a bigger part of the story.
Yeah.
And I also read, this is interesting, that they conceived the show with like it was going to be a single mom, but somebody was wary of there being any hint of romantic tension between Nick and the mom, so they made it a grandmother. Yeah. And then the actor Bruno, who plays Nick, I don't know if he was joking or not, but he said something like, "Well, he signed up to play with a blonde, a hot blonde, and they gave him a grandmother." Much to his chagrin. So originally they did have kids, but yes, in ours, in this season, I don't know if I think they had left the show by then.
Yeah, I mean, there's the one kid, Jesse's kid.
Yeah,
but she didn't really do anything. So the episode we're going to talk about is called Blue Plate Special. Mm-hmm. And so, did you find the actual date for this?
I saw conflicting things. I firmly believe that the official date is February 2nd, 1986.
Okay.
That's what IMDb and TV.com had, and they both agree on it, and that makes more sense based on some of the other things, so I would go with that.
Okay. And it's, what, 14? Season 14?
Yes, season 14, and about in the middle, episode 16, I think, or in the late end, so which would make sense if it was in February. So
right. So I don't think Amazon even has all the episodes of that season.
I don't think so either. I think it's a curated collection of Beachcombers.
There's definitely one I saw listed that, and maybe it's the next season, but it's the same year, called Mirror Mirror. That looked interesting because someone very similar to Relic comes to town and they cause chaos.
Well, that's an interesting idea. I think one thing that the show apparently got into was they did 380 some episodes, and how are you going to tell 380 stories?
Right.
And maybe they might have had to recycle some things, but that seems like an interesting. Yeah. Kind of silly, but yeah, that is kind of interesting. I agree. I like that.
So in this one opens up in Molly's Reach, this restaurant. Actually, it opens up outside it, and we see that it's for sale. So I guess Molly had more or less left the show by then. It's the impression I get.
Yes, but I guess she was still sending them letters because they're reading like a letter from her.
Yeah.
I think that was a regular thing. Like she was written off, but the gimmick was she still was alive and she would write letters to them. I don't know why. This is one of the things that
she's traveling. There's like a postcard. Or
yeah. But I guess she tells them that she's going to sell and I guess they can't reach her by phone or anything because the big question I have as we get into this is why don't they just talk to her about, hey, tell her not to sell this?
That's a good question.
And why would she sell it knowing its importance to the town?
Well, she's hoping for a good buyer, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Like she was excited that the buyer was local.
Yeah.
Turns out that wasn't so good. But yeah, and that's what we find. There's a postcard, and at the end of the postcard, she says in it, so clearly she does have a phone or access to telegrams or something, because she knows that there's an anonymous local buyer who's interested.
Yeah.
But they're all a little bewildered because they can't imagine anyone in town has enough money to do that.
Yeah, which is pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, except for Relic, who somehow has money.
Yeah.
I guess he hoards it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I guess he keeps his expenses low.
I mean, he has a jet boat.
Yeah.
Which looks really shabby, but
yeah,
it is a jet boat. And he lives on his own. They look at him like he's the buyer, and he says, does this face look as if it has an idiot behind it? And one of them, so we can vote on it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I mean, that character, I very much like. But he is a kind of a sitcom-y character in the sense that no one likes him, but they
indulge him at some level.
Or he's still sort of a friend.
Yeah, right. He's like the nemesis of like everybody in the town. He's like the one person that they all, can't stand.
Right. But,
he still hangs around them all the time.
He's still part of the community.
Yeah, like they, him, and like he, they. Like, you sort of get the idea that he's like reclusive, but he seems like the kind of guy that would be reclusive, but he's always hanging around trying to find out stuff, I guess. Maybe he's just nosy.
Yeah. Needs his next scam.
Yeah.
And he's definitely, he's Nick's competition, so he doesn't want to get the better of him.
Yeah, Nick is beloved.
Yes. But Relic, of course, he's very curious about this, and he goes to the one person he knows besides him who has money, whose name they don't say until the end of the episode, but this is Sal, who I guess owns the newspaper.
Yeah. Do you know something interesting about the actress who plays Sal?
I don't.
The real-life wife of Relic.
Ah.
They were husband and wife.
Okay. Explains all the heat.
Yeah. Who says that real-life couples can't create heat on screen? Not me.
So he kind of needles her into admitting that she's the one who put in the bid. And then she says she wants to bulldoze it to put up condos.
Yeah.
And
even back then, that was a thing. I mean, that's kind of a go-to. And you know what?
Right.
I'm not criticizing it because that really is a thing in life.
Yeah.
Everywhere, it seems like.
Yeah. It makes me curious about what the nature of this town. Like, nobody in it has enough money to buy the restaurant. But she sees the potential for condos, like selling. And I guess there are people who come in on a ferry.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people who end up at the restaurant. So
right, who apparently are new or not local. So
yeah,
maybe there's some kind of like trafficking. Well, maybe I should use a different word. There's more circulation of individuals through this community than might be apparent at first glance.
It is 1984.
Well, no, let's not go.
Okay. The Great Whiteness.
That'd be a great crossover episode. Miami Vice, Beachcombers.
We're just a couple of Americans in town.
Yeah.
Go fishing.
Yeah. Sonny Burnett and Rico Cooper.
If they're fishers, I don't know. And of course, Relics, he already sees possibilities for himself.
Yes.
So he's playing both sides, is what one might say. So he goes and tells the others to get them riled up. And then Nick suggests that they try to get the restaurant declared an historic site by the city council, which we don't see it, but we find out that they've agreed to that if they can prove in the next couple of weeks that it could be profitable.
It didn't seem to be the true spirit of a historical site, does it?
No.
Maybe it's different in Canada.
Yeah. So, they get to work trying to figure out shifts, and everyone's going to do it, and Constable John is on vacation, so he's going to be able to help, and they think they can do it. Meanwhile, Relic and Sal she's angry about it. She brings like the proof of the paper. Yeah. Or like a copy of one page of that article. Like, what's this about? And then, anyway, they make a deal to go 50-50 on this. They can get the restaurant closed.
Not exactly a willing deal, but Relic kind of schemes his way to that 50% thing.
And then he schemes himself into working at the restaurant.
Yeah, and he volunteers to take the busiest shift, does he not?
Yes, with some guy named Cease.
It's funny actually saying the busiest. Oh, and I want to take the busiest shift. Okay. Yeah, and Cease, who I assume is a regular.
Yeah.
He's got like that great like kind of character actor face and everything that.
Right.
You could see him being kind of
he's like
a character, but
maybe he works for Relic or something. He's like his first mate.
Yeah.
He definitely looks like a sailor kind of guy.
Yeah, he does.
And he says he can't cook, which is of course Relic's plan.
Yeah.
So his whole thing, he's going to sabotage this thing and make sure they don't make a profit.
Sure.
But John also shows up, and he's going to be the cook.
Yeah.
And again, very sitcom-y. He's, lets it go to his head immediately.
Yeah.
And it's like using a French accent.
Right.
Wearing a chef hat.
Yes.
Yeah. And basically on the first day, Relic just treats all the customers terribly and drives them away.
Yeah.
And, seems to be a big success. Plus they waste a lot of food.
Right.
And Sal is there kind of watching, and they're both like gloating.
Yeah, she's enjoying it.
Yeah, including some people order mashed potatoes and they get boiled potatoes, and he brings out the potato masher and just mashes them on the plate.
Yeah, I was rooting for that to happen, and sure enough, he did. It's in his interest, and because I guess Constable is kind of there, he's got to sort of be a little bit subtle about it because he doesn't want to make it obvious that he's doing that. Yeah. So he does try to do a little bit of hiding the fact that he's actually doing this from everybody else.
Right.
So that kind of prevents him from doing things a little bit more extreme. So it's actually not a bad plan, I think.
No,
at first, it's working.
First, yeah.
I mean, he's doing what he wants to do, but doesn't have the effect that he wants it to.
Right. And I mean, he's lucky too, the constable's so just involved in trying to do the cooking that he's not really paying attention.
That's right. Yeah. He's not out in the front, and everybody else, I guess, is living their lives. Now, here's something I didn't understand. Maybe this is obvious, but so Molly's Reach it's already a restaurant, right?
Yeah.
But it just nobody goes there except them?
I guess not enough people.
So
there's definitely another one in town.
So what about the people that are running it to begin with? It just seems weird that they're not around more during this episode. I mean, what was the...
Well, so Sarah, Jesse's wife, has been helping out part-time, but she's got to go work at the bank.
Okay.
And then there's the younger woman who does seem to actually work there.
Yeah.
But I guess, she can't be there all the time.
I mean, I should mention, too, there's a couple of people in the credits that don't appear in any of the episodes I've seen.
Yeah. So, yeah, Captain Jack. And
yeah. I saw him in that earlier episode I watched, or one of the other ones. But, yeah, so I don't know. I was just a little confused by that. I mean, It seems like they've got to take this...
Maybe they're keeping it open longer for
that could be.
Other shifts or something.
That could be. It doesn't seem like it's a really bustling place to begin with.
Yeah. And Nick's, office is attached to the building.
Yeah.
So he doesn't even seem concerned about that part.
Yeah.
My office is going to get bulldozed.
Yeah, that's right. I hadn't thought about that.
But he and Jesse have to go, look for logs or whatever. Yeah. And then Nick comes in and sees how low their take was, and Relic blames the buffoons in the back.
Yeah.
Which, he's got a point.
It's believable enough.
Yeah. But the next day, we're, outside, and we see some, young people heading towards the restaurant, and, one of them's like, you got to see the guy running it.
Yeah.
And it's great. Oh, I know where this is going. Sure enough, the place is super busy, and all these people are just totally enjoying Relic's ridiculous behavior.
Yeah.
It's like the soup Nazi or something.
Yeah, they all turn around and laugh, and oh boy, what a character.
Yeah, and there's a guy with a mullet, and just need to point that out. There's a guy with a mullet.
Yeah.
I mean, it is Canada. Stereotyping again, but
I see. Yeah.
Hockey, mullets.
Yeah. Good.
And they're also entertained by John, he's ranting about something about the food. And
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's all part of it, an act, I guess. Or...
Yeah. And I think one of the other people was kind of looking in on this and saw what was going on. Was fascinated.
Yeah, but the main thing is it's become a big tourist attraction now. Apparently.
Yeah. So all the people from where they're from, the next town over, I don't know.
Yeah, and apparently being behind on food and everything isn't enough to deter people.
That's right. They get a show.
Yeah. It's like dinner theater.
A sandwich and a show.
Yeah.
Soup and a show.
Yeah. Bacon and liver and a show.
Yeah, bacon and liver. That sounds terrible.
Yeah. I mean, I think, Relic is...
It's bad for you. I mean...
Yeah.
Bacon and liver?
Yeah.
Come on.
It can't be good for you, but it's a treat every now and then, maybe.
I guess if you like bacon.
I'll put up with a little bacon if I get some of that great liver.
Sweet liver.
I can tolerate bacon if it's with liver. But yeah, so Relic has to kind of resort to basically just trashing the food and outright.
None of us working.
It still makes everybody turn around and just start laughing at.
Yeah. So his next scheme, which is pretty good in a way, is he reserves all the tables as if they had a reservation list.
Yeah.
So the next day, the restaurant is empty and there's just a line around the corner, around the block. That's working pretty well until Nick and Jesse show up to find out what's going on.
Yeah.
And then They get mad at him. Relic quits.
Yeah, and Nick dramatically opens the doors and says, "Come on in, we're open for business," And everybody comes in, and I guess they aren't disappointed by the fact that they're not getting the show that they came for.
This guy's really nice.
Yeah, this isn't at all what we were led to believe.
Yeah, but the food's on time. Okay.
Yeah, got their bacon and liver. I guess they're okay.
Molly's Reach bacon and liver is the best bacon and liver in all of Canada.
Yeah, apparently.
At least Western Canada.
Yeah.
I don't know about Eastern Canada.
Yeah, that's a lot of ground there. So
yeah,
that's a pretty good distinction in itself.
But Nick tells Relic that his shifts saved the restaurant. The money they brought in put him over the top.
Yeah.
And then Sal shows up and they argue, and then she shoves him in the water.
Yeah, she shoves him in the water, and there's a comic it's like one of those. He doesn't say whoa, but you sort of it's kind of one of those things where it takes a while for him to fall back in and kind of waving his arms in. So yeah,
I want to take this time to actually describe his physical appearance too.
Ah yes, good.
So he's a kind of a wiry guy maybe, and he wears kind of dirty clothes. Mm-hmm. He's always got a hat on, beanie or whatever you want to call it, and he's got like this long stringy hair.
Yeah.
He's not a pleasant looking guy, really.
Yeah.
You can see why, that he's trouble.
Right.
But it's a good look for that kind of character.
Yeah.
And I think he smokes a pipe too.
Yeah, and I think as I told you when I first started watching this, some episodes of this show, pretty much I don't know if it was right in the opening credits or in his first scene, we were just like, oh, that Relic, he's up to no good. You can tell. What's he gonna do next? I mean, they definitely portray him as that kind of guy. Oh, that rascal Relic. Yep. He's always up to something.
So in the one of the episodes I watched was the bank was going to foreclose on Nick, take his boat, and Relic tried to get the paper on the boat so he could finally put him out of business or put him under his thumb. And there was another one that featured a young Ryan Stiles and involved this guy named Halibut Stew.
Yes, I did watch that one.
Yeah. So these guys, Ryan Stiles and this other guy, were after Halibut Stew for something, and it turned out he was part of a wealthy family, and they wanted him to come home. And he was a crazy kind of hippie environmentalist.
Free spirit, totally anti-corporate, and didn't want any part of it.
Right, but Relic got all involved in that.
Yeah.
Because he thought he could get a cut.
Yeah.
So anywhere he can get a cut.
Yes.
I mean, he seems a little grumpy. I don't think he's he's not evil.
Yeah. The one I think I watched from 1975 was about Relic being being kind of a jerk. And he was the only one that wouldn't contribute to a sailor's fund or whatever.
Uh-huh.
And he sort of schemed there was another character who apparently became a kind of a fan favorite for a while and was sort of a foil and described as a partner in crime. I guess maybe this is one of his first appearances or whatever, but he died after 5 years in the show or whatever. So anyways, he did something mean and to this guy McCloskey, and so everybody gave him an old Greek technique that Nick thought of to treat him like he's invisible. So he would come in and they'd all just ignore him and pretend like he didn't exist and everything like that, So that was their way of getting back at him. And did this whole elaborate thing to carry that out through the whole episode. And they sort of established that, it was one of those things where nobody's that mean, not even Relic. And it turned out he was kind of mean, but you're right. He was he's not mean enough that they tolerate him enough to go through the trouble of doing these things to teach him a lesson, it seems like.
Yeah.
But they eventually relent and kind of have a good laugh at him. And it's if they can get a good laugh at his expense, everything's forgiven.
Yeah, which, that seems about right for that kind of character.
Yeah.
They tolerate him. He's part of the community. I guess he loses so often, too.
That's a good point.
He's an obstacle, but...
Right.
I mean, he must win sometimes. He's got money, but...
Yeah, you'd think, but I guess he makes life a lot more interesting in Gibsons.
Yeah. I think as a kid, I would have hated that character.
You think so?
He's one of those characters, why are you causing so much trouble?
Yeah, I might have been thinking, why do you even put up with him?
Yeah.
Just tell him, hey, cut it out.
Right.
At the end, or we're not going to, associate with you, period.
Yeah. But now, of course, as an adult, I see the value of the pot stirrer in a show like this.
Yes, he's the archetype, the classic trickster character.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'd say it'd be interesting to see. Oh, I did watch the episode about the board game Clue. Did you watch that one?
No, I haven't watched that.
Yes, that was a departure from form for the show because I guess Constable, and hey, it worked for Joseph Heller, so Let's not make fun of Beachcombers for going to this one.
No.
So Constable is a big Clue fan, and he gets all bummed because he thought everybody was going to get together to play Clue, but they kind of all leave him there. And he has this dream sequence where he dreams that he's a detective, and it's kind of everybody's in these characters, like sort of stand-ins for the Clue characters, and he has to solve like a murder mystery.
Ooh.
So, and then you see some of these other characters that maybe you don't see as much on the show, including that captain guy.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was kind of interesting. And
Relic in the conservatory with the pipe.
Well, it's a little bit more complicated than that, my friend. You'll have to watch to see how it turns out. But it's kind of it was kind of like, oh, it's kind of interesting. One thing I do like about this show is it's kind of cool seeing some location shooting.
Yeah, I like that.
It's something like some visuals you don't see in a lot of other television. Yeah. It's kind of cool. Like the setting is palpable, and they make good use of it.
And although they didn't really use the boats in this episode,
right?
But it does continue. What I just realized is another unintentional theme of this season, which is unique transportation. Miami Vice, we had some boats. Yeah. We had an airplane.
Right.
This we had boats again. Doctor Who obviously is time travel.
Yeah.
And if you believe the Daleks are a travel conveyance, there's that. And there was another one.
Well, we had a bus trip.
We had a bus trip? Yeah. I know there was another one.
Well, let's see. I won't give it away, but we're going to have another episode coming up this season that's pretty much all about an unusual form of transportation.
This is true, yes.
I guess that's not the one you were thinking of, though. But
no. Oh, dirt bikes.
Yes, dirt bikes. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's a good call, Mike.
Right.
Yes, unique forms of transportation, and other episodes are definitely more boat-centric. Yeah. And the opening, we should talk about the opening of the show.
And in the opening, even the old opening, not the Baywatch style, a lot of that seems very kind of adventure show, or almost like a Mutual of Omaha. Beachcombers.
It kind of looked to me like something like Gentle Ben or something, or one of those like old 60s like tour shows where they had like, or Flipper or something like that. You know? Yeah. I definitely was expecting more nature elements, some of the ones that we talked about earlier. We got more sitcom elements, I think, in the ones that we watched.
Right, yeah. But, it's very like triumphant music, and there are a lot of boat scene shots and stuff.
But with some like a little, some wacky music too.
Yes.
There's definitely that, there's actually like some of these motifs that keep showing up throughout the episodes. You know what it reminded me of? The use of music on this show reminded me a lot of the Sherwood Schwartz shows, like Gilligan's Island and Brady Bunch, where they'd have the like these different little things are like little cues to basically tell you, okay, this is a funny part coming up, or like a little wacky little sting when somebody falls down and stuff like that. And it seemed like they made use of that a lot on this show.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm there's probably like Relic's theme.
Yeah, right.
That's maybe a little like Curb Your Enthusiasm. Do you know which character got his own spinoff that lasted about 4 episodes? I believe Constable John, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
it didn't last very long apparently. And
he was in the revivals too, I think.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the cast some of them had passed away.
But after 19 years, I can't blame him.
Yeah.
Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It wasn't like they passed away to get out of this revival,
right.
But and I guess they brought on Dave Thomas.
Yes, and Graham Greene.
Yeah, and the idea, Dave Thomas and Graham Greene, and the idea, I guess, was to maybe launch a revival, but they wound up doing it movies instead, and I guess the movies didn't do well enough to sustain the new Beachcombers. And have we talked about that before? That nothing new ever works. Am I right? The new Leave It to Beaver didn't work. No. The new Monkeys didn't work.
No.
The new Phil Silvers show didn't work. The new Dick Van Dyke show didn't work.
The all-new All-Star Super Friends Hour. All new might work, but new, yes.
Right.
The new Schmoo Show was the way.
Well, that actually worked.
Yes.
No, I don't know. I made a reference to this on the website.
The new Zoo Review.
The new Zoo Review. I think the reason that worked is because it didn't start out as the Zoo Review and then be revived.
Right.
If you start out with the new, you have a good chance.
Yeah.
Unlike, however, the one that didn't was the New Show. Lorne Michaels' show called The New Show did not work.
No.
Yeah. Yeah. Basically, the new that's you're telling everybody that it's going to be a loser show when you do that.
New Coke.
New Coke. Yeah, not so good. Oh, the new WKRP in Cincinnati.
Yeah. What I mean, what's happening now didn't have new in it, but
I think you know why it did last a little bit, but I think it didn't do as good as it could have been because people thought it was What's Happening New.
yes,
You know, and they thought, oh no, that's got the stink of failure all over it. Forget it.
right. I think you're right. I can't even think of an exception that proves the rule.
Yeah, maybe there's something out there. You know, let us know, folks, if there is one. But
yeah,
you know, you're better off just renaming it, just calling it the same thing.
Right.
That's what they're doing now, right? They're not.
Yeah.
When they do these reboots and everything, they don't go, hey, here's
right.
the new X-Files or whatever.
No,
it's just X-Files again.
Right.
They don't have the new 24.
No. Another 24.
Yeah.
The new one day at a time.
Yeah. Oh, right. Yeah. Don't do it. But maybe I can mention here, for a show that was on 19 seasons and 387 episodes, it's kind of tough to get a lot of information about the production history.
Yes.
I thought. I did find some interesting information, though, and I can't help but think that if you had, if it was an American show, you'd have tons of stuff about it, you would think. But I don't know, because it's just weird to me, because apparently it was an institution in Canada, and it was very popular despite being widely panned by critics. And that's a direct quote, actually, from something I read, that it was widely panned by critics. But Canada, they enjoyed it. And I guess it started out, there was a different show called Adventures in Rainbow County, and they reworked that into this show. There was some kind of production dispute, and they wound up, but it did so well, despite having already had the plug pulled on it when it aired, that the CBC decided, hey, there's a market for a family-oriented show, and that's how they developed this. Although the creators apparently left very shortly, and then came back years later. The Stranges, I guess they were a husband and wife team or whatever. But,
I think they wrote this episode.
Yeah, so they wound up writing episodes more later, but I guess for a long time they weren't even on the show. So it's very interesting for a show just with this many episodes that there's not more information about it. I'm kind of puzzled by that, but maybe I wasn't looking in the right places.
You can see. The restaurants still exist, right? Some of the sets and things, or the locations.
Yeah, I think they were
Gibsons
preserved, and I mean, apparently it became it inspired bands, and as everybody knows it, I guess. And if you grew up in Canada, if you were us in Canada, we would have at least known about this.
Sure, yeah,
because it would have been on every Sunday at 7:00 or 7:30 or whatever.
Yeah.
Here's a little trivia. Do you know what show replaced it in Canada when it was finally canceled in 1990? What show was an American import that replaced it? And I'm going to tell you right now, if you didn't look it up, I'll give you $2,000 if you can guess it. I'd give you $2,000 if you could guess who was in it, because the show was not a big hit.
Well,
it lasted maybe 8 episodes.
Well, that narrows it down to a bunch of things I wasn't going to guess.
Okay.
The Duck Factory.
No, that's a good guess, actually. But I did not owe you $2,000, at least not for this.
Yeah.
Our long running cricket wagers, though, I've got a running tally. No, it was a show called Sydney with Valerie Bertinelli as somebody who moves to or starts a detective agency in Los Angeles, and I think it had Matthew Perry was in it as well, and a couple other people. It was on CBS, and it aired 8 episodes.
Not Love Sydney.
No, spelled the same. I think.
Okay.
Well, actually, I think it was the SYDNEY version of Sydney. But no, not the Tony Radnall Loves Sydney. But yeah, just Sydney. And that was the show that took off Beachcombers that had been on for 19 years.
Wow.
It was the show that followed Beachcombers, I guess. The
show
show that followed it was okay, but you couldn't be the show that followed Beachcombers.
No, they probably didn't. They didn't say we're going to cancel Beachcombers so we can put on this Valerie Bertinelli thing.
I don't think that's how it went down.
It's just they needed something to put on.
Yeah. It just happened to be the show that filled the time slot, I guess.
Right. And Jason Priestley was busy in America at the time. So
yeah, that's right.
Get him.
He couldn't come back as the favorite son.
No.
To come up with something.
Yeah.
In his treasure chest of show ideas that he carried around with him. What did you think of Beachcombers, Mike?
It's a very comforting show. It's nice. I enjoy it. I think maybe if it were a little more of either of the things it's supposed to be, I might enjoy it more.
Yeah.
But it seems, I think partly because it, like I said, there's not a lot of, other than Relic, there's not a lot of character conflict.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess this Sal lady seems like trouble too, but
in
a different way. And she's a guest star, so she wasn't in every episode.
Yeah.
But I could see why it stuck around.
Yeah, I think I can too. For me, it's a little broad. I didn't really care for it that much.
Yeah.
But I could see, I mean, there's elements of it that I see in some of the shows that I do like now, like something like a Doc Martin,
Right.
where it has like a unique setting, and it's an hour-long show, but it's comedy drama built around like quirky characters in a small small town setting, and kind of like their foibles and everything. But Doc Martin has like they've got characters that are defined, very strongly defined and very sharply defined. And here, like in the sample of episodes, I don't see a lot of character definition of any of them, except Relic. They don't really stand out.
Right.
There's maybe a couple of them. Even Constable, who's a lot of the sort of the comic relief in some places. I just don't see it here. And I think the fact that it's a half hour, they kind of lean into like the wacky sitcom elements. And like you said, we don't get enough of the like kind of more the scenery and kind of like maybe some things that make it uniquely Canadian.
Right.
Or they don't explore that setting as much in the episodes I've seen as I'd like.
And you mentioned Doc Martin brings up, not that this is necessary, but a lot of those shows work because they have an outsider character.
Yes.
Like him or like Joel Fleischman on Northern Exposure.
Yeah.
Someone who's not used to the ways there and over time maybe gets more comfortable with them and usually is sort of judging the locals poorly.
Yes.
But keeps learning.
Right. And
their ways might be strange, but they're good people and they have a lot of value.
Yeah, there's another show that I like called 800 Words about a guy that moves to New Zealand with his family, and it's kind of the same deal. Like, thinks the whole town's crazy and stuff, and sometimes it seems like they are, but he gradually assimilates and everything. But he's the outsider character that's sort of our proxy, I guess.
But maybe in season 1 there was.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I don't want to judge this show too much because we're looking at a handful of episodes from the 14th episode. And who knows what the show was like earlier, although I did say that one episode was pretty much the same as the one we saw 10 years later. But, I don't know. I don't want to judge it too much. But it was very interesting, and there's a lot of unique elements. And it has kind of like that we've talked about already this season. It has sort of that look to it, just that okay, because some of the location shooting, it's like, okay, this isn't all set on an interior stage, and it kind of looks different. So that gives it just a visual look of like the film and the locations. So it stands out that way. Right,
and it's a small town. I mean, again, Vancouver's in everything now, so we're kind of used to the look of that, but
right,
but not like a little town like that. And the other thing is that at least before we picked this show, I spent some time trying to like look up other Canadian shows from this era and stuff, and there were a lot that looked interesting, but I don't think are probably available to us.
Yeah, that's a shame. I'd like to know if there's maybe more stuff. There's got to be some, and maybe the thing is, how would we know? I don't remember how we figured out that Beachcombers was on there. I guess
I think accident? I just saw it by accident.
Yeah,
on the list.
Yeah. It's hard enough to find stuff on Amazon to begin with.
Yeah, or maybe I was looking at something else and it was like, people who watch this like this, and it was that kind of thing. And it's just like the image for it, but is just a black background with the Beachcombers in like a white font.
Yeah.
There's no art or anything. And
it's very bizarre. I don't know how this got on here and what it's doing there. But I'm glad it's there, but I don't understand it.
And say that friend of the show Dan had recommended a different Canadian show called The Littlest Hobo, and a particular episode of that, and we might get to that at some point. Mm-hmm. I think we're still not ready to do another dog show.
Yeah,
we had done Run Joe Run a while ago. Once we get past like 100 episodes, we can maybe revisit the idea of a dog show. I like dogs. There's no problem with dogs.
Yeah, no.
I'm not into this trend of dog movies.
No, you're against that.
It seems like there's a lot of them. You don't really hear about them, but except for I see trailers for them all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if they must be succeeding. They must be cheap to make and successful. Just enough,
You'd think, yeah. And I guess there's the idea that there's a universal appeal of dogs. But now that you mention, I don't remember seeing any dogs on Beachcombers, and it seems like the kind of show that would have a dog.
It seems like there should be at least one dog.
Yeah, and like a dog that would be with them on the boat a lot of times too.
Yeah.
Just like a friendly thing, and somebody for Nick to come home, he hangs his hat up and pets the dog in the head, or at least
Yeah, maybe like just a cat wandering through the streets.
Well, again, maybe they did for like 8 seasons, but then they moved away.
What if one of them had like a pet beaver?
Yeah, well, that would be interesting.
That would be cool. or a moose or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Pet moose.
Yeah. Well, Northern Exposure did the moose walking through town.
Yeah.
Later. So, but still, I would.
Well, I know that they've made at least one reference to Beachcombers on Corner Gas too.
Okay.
So it's definitely a Canadian institution, and it has to have had some kind of influence on other things. But I don't know if it's affected this kind of like British small town comedy drama thing that I was talking about or not. But maybe
I think that's like a long-standing tradition there. Maybe I think the village thing is, who knows? Yeah, maybe this was a huge hit in England too. Well, it was on ITV.
Yeah, it actually was syndicated, but I think initially at least it was syndicated as a children's show.
Yeah,
like they put it on Britain on Saturday mornings.
I don't know if you noticed this, but one of the countries it was syndicated in, the channel it was on was SCTV.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Well, it was like Indonesia or something like that. Like, yeah.
Oh, but they had lots of great programming on there.
Now on SCTV.
Yeah. So I'm glad we looked into this, and much respect to Steve in particular, and especially in general all of our Canadian listeners. Mm-hmm. And please, give us some other ideas for shows and help fill in some of our gaps. Like I'm admitting, I don't know hardly anything about Canadian television. There's probably more to cover. We've talked about game show hosts have come down here, comedians have come down here, but really the whole thing of it, I really don't know a lot about how the system works. So maybe we can talk about it some more sometime.
Yeah. Well, there were some Canadian game shows he recommended too.
Yeah.
That's another thing maybe we're not ready to get back to yet. Well,
I'm always ready to go back to game shows, but yes, I respect that it wasn't too long ago that we did that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks again to Steve, and I think we'll get back to Canada. Hopefully, if we can find something to watch. Or other, we've covered the UK a couple times now.
Yeah.
And in Canada, maybe there's some other ones.
Yeah.
Who knows? Even something subtitled. Why not?
Yeah. Or other. Yeah. I think one of the things that we have to that I'm kind of realizing as we go on this international mini journey in the middle of the season here is that nowadays it's so much easier to find all this material from other countries. But growing up, if it wasn't on PBS, I mean, where would you find some of this stuff?
Yeah.
And even now, going back and finding stuff from the 70s and 80s is a lot harder. So
yeah, but
that's definitely a big gap in my TV knowledge of the era is international TV.
Yeah,
I mean, especially non-British stuff.
Yep. All right.
This episode brought to you by Molly's Reach, proudly cooking something white since 1972. This episode also brought to you by Nick's Salvage. This episode also brought to you by Relic. You never know what he'll do. Join us next time for another exciting episode of Battle of the Network shows. Learn more, leave feedback, and suggest future episodes at battleofthenetworkshows.com. Follow us on Twitter at BatNetShows, and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Battle of the Network Shows.